All right, so now let's go to the commodity space now and see what's happening with oil prices this morning. And to join us for that conversation is Dr. Adesola Sumoni, a senior analyst with Financial Derivatives Company. Good morning. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Sumoni.
Good morning, Ini. Thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, so what's happening around oil again this time?
So thank you for your question. We are seeing oil prices at the moment trend downwards, mainly because of weak manufacturing data globally in some key economies. If you look at the manufacturing purchasing managers index for Japan for the month of August, you see that is in contraction region. It came in at around 49.7%. If you look at the same manufacturing PMI for the Eurozone, it came in at around 47%. And also the UK service PMI came in at around 48.7 points. And the way the PMI works is simply a composite index which has a neutral level of 50. So any reading below 50 shows like a contraction in manufacturing activity, and any reading above 50 shows expansion in manufacturing activity. And for the economies of Japan, Eurozone, and the UK, we are seeing contraction, which is kind of dragging economic activity in those economies and weighing on oil demand. In addition to that, we also saw news of a build-up in gasoline stockpiles in the US, which outweighed news of a sharp or larger than expected drawdown in crude oil stockpiles. So with build-up in gasoline stockpiles, it simply means that there's not enough. The demand for gasoline in the US is quite soft, and that's why we are seeing a build-up in gasoline stockpiles. In addition to that, on the other hand, we are seeing Saudi Arabia. There's now consensus that Saudi Arabia would extend its voluntary cuts in oil production by around 1 million barrels a day up until October to keep the markets tight. So going forward, we believe that the market is tight as it is, but Saudi Arabia's extension or expansion of its voluntary cuts would keep the market tighter and keep prices elevated in the coming months.
Yeah, so I think that the PMI for UK yesterday came as a surprise. For China, we've been seeing that go on for a bit, So obviously, just when we thought that the fear of recession and all of this negative sentiment is over, then, on one day we just see a lot of drop in PMI. And, of course, this seeps to what's going on in demand of oil and the price. So it doesn't look like we're out of the woods, or we're even on our way out of the woods globally now, not even Nigeria.
Yeah, it seems like we are walking on a tightrope. Even though the recession fears have subsided, they've not completely. They are not completely out yet. They are not completely gone yet. Like we've seen the PMI readings, they came in worse than expected, which is going to even create a dilemma for central banks who are still trying to rein in inflation, particularly the European Union, where inflation is still elevated, and now this drawdown in this contraction in manufacturing activity would even create a dilemma for the European Central Bank, who is expected to increase benchmark interest rates in their coming meetings.
And we see that gas is also up today, 0.63%, and it's connected to Australian gas talks.
Indeed. So what's happening in Australia is apparently there are three export terminals where the worker union in those key export terminals are threatening to strike, and those terminals account for around 10% of global LNG output. Overnight, there was a meeting between the organization and the union for one of the key export terminals, and the consensus is that they expect they will release a report later today, and the expectation is that the industrial action will be averted. But for the other two key export terminals, talks are still ongoing. We are hopeful that the threat of industrial action does not materialize, because if it does, particularly for Europe, it's a big challenge, because these three these three export terminals account for a huge portion, around 10% of global natural gas exports. Now, if there's a disruption if this threat of industrial action materializes and there's a disruption in a global LNG, then we're going to see prices rise upward. We're going to see prices trend upwards, particularly because Australia supplies Asia, and if there's a disruption in Australia, then Asian buyers begin to look towards alternatives such as the US and the Middle East. And at the moment, European natural gas, after moving away from Russia, is buying from the US and the Middle East. So if there's a disruption in Australia, it will boost competition for buyers, and it may put EU in a trying situation. Remember, two factors for the EU natural gas market. One is that although they have reached their storage targets for this year, in advance of the heating season, as at last Saturday, storage for EU gas was around 91%, which is 2 months in advance of the need for heating. But there's also need for continuous imports, and they get those imports from the US and the Middle East.
But I was
to note that just last year the EU.
Yeah, I was thinking that since the EU, they said they have their storage about 90% full, even ahead of the November 1st deadline. That should also ease demand and bring down price.
Indeed, that is why the kind of increase in price in EU gas is kind of capped, because there's ample supply. But in addition to just ample supply, there's also need for continuous imports, because during the winter season, there's going to be a drawdown in the stockpiles, and if there's no replenishment, or if there's no replenishment of that drawdown, then it's going to be almost a crisis situation for the EU. Remember last year, the saving grace we had in the EU last year was because we had a warmer than expected winter. If the winter was colder than expected, then there were expectations that we're going to have energy crisis in the EU. We're going to have blackouts, rationing of gas, and even some houses freezing over.
All right, let's look at other commodities now. Wheat is up. Apparently, the fact that Russia has struck another facility, a grain facility in Ukraine, is a contributory factor here.
Yeah, indeed. As long as Russia and Ukraine keep this tussle between Russia and Ukraine continues, the prices of wheat will remain elevated, and they'll be quite volatile. So, like you said, yesterday there was an attack on grain infrastructure in Ukraine, and the numbers coming out says that around 13,000 tons of grains meant for Egypt and Romania were destroyed. And also numbers coming out of Ukraine show that since Russia pulled out of the Black Sea grain deal, around 270,000 tons of grains have been destroyed by Russia. So I think that is quite significant. But on the other hand, we are seeing Russia exports large quantities of grains, which is kind of keeping prices, which is kind of supporting prices at the moment. And also this uncertainty around the Black Sea region. So the Black Sea grain deal is over at the moment. Although the Turkish president is trying to renegotiate, talk to the Russian president to reopen the deal. But there's still uncertainty around that, and also Ukraine is looking for other creative means to export grain out of the country. But as long as the fact that Russia and Ukraine are still in this tussle, it means that grain prices are going, particularly wheat prices, are going to be quite volatile, and they remain elevated. Yeah,
and they are all meeting. That's Russia, Egypt, without Romania, obviously. They're now meeting in BRICS, the summit. I wonder if this would be a matter to say Egypt could tell Russia to say, you're wasting away the grain that was supposed to be sent to us. You're going to keep my people hungry. What do you want to do? I wish it could actually come up.
Perhaps it would come up, perhaps it would, those kind of conversations will come up. Obviously, this is quite a sensitive issue. So I think maybe in a side meeting, they could discuss that. But also talking about BRICS, BRICS is looking to expand their reach in the world. Currently, BRICS economics economies account for around 25% of global GDP. But recently, I think yesterday, they invited Saudi Arabia, Iran, UAE, Ethiopia, and I think Argentina to join BRICS to kind of expand their influence in the global economy. I think that is quite positive.
Yeah. Oh, you think it's positive? You don't think it's a risk to the Western world? You're in the UK, Dr. Adesola. Don't forget that. You're in the UK. This is anti-West, so please. All right, so finally now, like a bit of good news, I haven't seen it, maybe I haven't gone to the market, that the price of palm oil, that's for 25 liters, is down to 22,500. I don't know, I haven't gone to the market. This is your research of financial derivatives. You know, I'm sure this will be a good, bring a little bit of relief to the mind of a lot of Nigerians.
Indeed, I mean, I think we're in the harvest season at the moment, so we are seeing the price of some commodities trend downwards. Peppers, tomatoes are down. Palm oil is also down, which is quite positive. At least we'll get some respite. But on the other hand, for a lot of exchange rate sensitive commodities like flour, we are seeing their prices trend upwards. Obviously, we know in the global market the price of wheat is wheat, which is a major component in making flour, is quite volatile, but it is trending upwards. So that plus the exchange rate challenge, I think those two factors together are boosting the price of flour at the moment. And I think because of all these factors together, I think two weeks ago, a couple of months ago, the Bakers Association of Nigeria also increased the price of flour by I think 15% to reflect the current cost environment.
All right, Adesola, thank you so much for your time this morning. And well, take good care of yourself. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you.
All right, now, as we take a break now, we'd like to tell you that financial technology company with interest across remittance, digital banking, and payment infrastructure, Transvar, has expanded its geographical reach to over 100 countries from the UK, the United States, and more than 27 EU countries, including Canada, New Zealand, and Australia, as well as Nigeria, Ghana, and in Kenya. With its latest move, its innovative product, the Freedom Bank account in Nigeria, subscribers can now stand a chance to receive and send instant bank payment at discounted fees on international transactions. The Fast Money International Money Transfer Platform disclosed this in Lagos, and we have that report.